Hello, my darling.
Hello, how are you?
I just can't stop smiling and laughing when I see your face. So I know this is a proper podcast, but can I
Yes,
just say how much I love you?
I love you too. So good to see you. I miss you. One day we'll cross paths in the near future, I
We see
hope.
each other so soon, and we're gonna get full moon together, and we're gonna sit on the deck in Bacala
Bacalar.
and just be in our goddess energy.
Exactly. That's
Yeah,
where it's at.
we're
I've never
manifesting for all of
experienced
it.
I've never experienced anything like Bacalar in my life, and it's like the most incredible place I've ever been to. It's like the most serene.
It's magical. It's
Wow.
out this
I
world,
love it.
and it's
I
meant
love
for
it.
us. So
It is. It
we're
is. I mean,
holding the vision, and we make
yes,
plans for it.
yes. Very soon, very soon.
All right, well, welcome to the Coco Experience podcast.
Thank you.
Yes, it's an honor to have you. And to be honest, we've been friends for over 3 years.
Mhm.
And this is probably going to be the first time that I really diving deep into your world. And I know that you have so much knowledge and experiences and just over the years of having so many clients and also your background and all your life experiences. So okay, I'm going to stop ranting and I'm going to ask you the first question. What is naturopathy?
Great question. So that can be defined by different people in different circumstances. In terms of what naturopathy is to me, because I am a licensed naturopathic doctor in the state of California, it is a practice of medicine. So it is a entire philosophy of practicing medicine and helping people identify the root cause of their health issues and overcome them through specific natural therapies. Naturopathic doctors use drugs too, depending on the doctor, depending on their individual philosophy. But in terms of what all naturopathic doctors have in common are the principles of naturopathic medicine, right? There's a pyramid, there's pillars of that. Like using the healing power of nature is one of them. We draw upon the healing power of nature to help our clients identify and treat the root cause and start thriving in their life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, how naturopathy views mental health differently than conventional method?
That's a lot.
If
So
you can just give us like dumb it down, like just simple way of understanding it. Because
yeah.
obviously it's a vast topic, right? Like it's,
Yeah, yeah. So whenever we're talking about naturopathic medicine, we're wanting to identify the root cause. So right there, right off the bat, there's a huge difference, right? In conventional medicine, there's not really a big interest in understanding why somebody is exhibiting symptoms. In terms of mental health symptoms, it's more of the fact that they are and they need to not be anymore. So how can we get them
mm,
from point A to point B as quickly as possible, whether that is, suppressive in nature or not? Now, naturopathic medicine will sometimes, depending on where we're at in the therapeutic order, sometimes medication would be appropriate. Again, it depends on the individual doctor and their philosophy because we're also different. Like naturopathic doctors are like herding cats. Like we're really different in philosophy. Like we have these pillars that hold us together, but we all kind of go off and do our own thing, which is what's so beautiful about the profession. No two naturopathic doctors are alike. Whereas conventional doctors, they all work off of
mm,
algorithms, right? So it's like here's the
mm.
algorithm for this, here's the algorithm for that. So yeah, with naturopathic medicine, I'm gonna ask, like, for example, if somebody's experiencing anxiety, which is the most common thing that I see, I'm gonna ask, why is this person experiencing anxiety? There's so many things that can lead to the physiologic expression of anxiety. Like, what is actually happening underneath the anxiety? That could be so many things. Usually, it's not just one thing. I think we
Mm.
all have this like mentality because of conventional medicine that there's like this bullet, right? This magic bullet or this one cause, and usually it's a multitude or a culmination of things, which we'll talk about more, I'm sure.
Yeah. And it makes me think about the Eastern approach to understand an issue, which really to understand the roots of something
Yeah.
and the context of the situation.
Yeah.
Whereas with like Western medicine, like the conventional way, I feel like it's just finding ways to cope and just
Yeah.
to shut down the immediate expression of the
Yeah.
situation or the
Yeah.
symptoms.
Yeah.
Um,
Which
so you
I
would
would
say
like to
it's more
say,
holistic.
go ahead.
It's definitely a more holistic approach,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you were about to say something.
Yeah, we spoke at the same time. Sorry. I was getting excited. I was like, I'm so passionate.
Yes. Maybe.
But what I would love to say about that is that the reason, and this is maybe just a little bit more of a deep dive answer, the reason that it is conventional medicine is interested in suppression of symptoms so readily and so quickly is because they're not interested in redesigning the paradigm in terms of like the sick society that we live in. We
Mm,
live like if we really want to talk about societal or like, public health root causes of, mental health, we're all very disconnected, right? Everyone's addicted to technology, everyone's addicted to their phones. People are not congregating in communities. People are spending more time indoors than outdoors. People are eating poisonous food, especially here in the States. So all of these things are going to like impact our health and they're not interested in, rebooting that system, right? Because that system is
yeah.
designed to benefit a small few. So the system is part of the system, right? That's part of the machine. So that's another reason. And I think there are so many well-meaning doctors who practice modalities like psychiatry that genuinely think they're making a difference. And, I've spoke to a number of psychiatrists who practiced as traditional psychiatrists and later left that field and became more naturopathic and holistic because they were like, holy shit, I had an awakening. Kelly Brogan is probably the biggest example of one of those people she's a medical doctor, board certified psychiatrist, and had an awakening where she was like, this is actually all bullshit. So
Yeah.
it's quite fascinating when you zoom out from that lens and you can really see why things, I think it's important to have a bird's eye view and why things are the way they are at large and then work from there and understand that the
Mm,
system is kind of designed to be this way.
yeah. I think I don't know, I've seen a meme somewhere, but basically saying something along the line of Goldman Sachs once asked like an investor if finding cure for disease is a sustainable business model,
Yeah,
right? Because that's a very
absolutely not.
different lens. It's like we need to have an issue to make money, right? So they're
Yes.
actually selling the product is
Yeah.
disease.
Yeah.
So it's a sick mentality. And that's why we're
Yeah.
having this conversation today.
Yes. Yeah. We're
So the
shifting the
first, we're shifting slowly, day by day, one person at a time. So the first sort of angle to this vast topics I want to touch point on is understanding hormones and the relationship of it to overall health, wellness, mental health.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And even relationship. I mean, it's everything is interconnected. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. I see hormones as not the root cause. Hormones are an expression of something deeper, but they certainly are a surface level thing to tell us that something is off. When we're talking about hormones, first of all, like what hormones are we talking about, right? In the
Mm.
context of mental health, I tend to put them into three categories. Stress hormones, so like cortisol would be the main player there. Also, go ahead. Yeah.
So just like dumb it down because I'm 6 years old right now, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
what are hormones? Are they produced by your body? Are they
Yes.
like produced by your body? And what's like
Yes.
the main purpose?
Yeah, they're chemical, thank you. They're chemical messengers that are produced by your
Yeah,
body. Yeah.
yeah.
So there's cellular receptors for hormones, and typically the hormones will go and bind to those receptors within the cell, and then they'll carry out an action. Depend
Okay,
like
so they
for
have a fixed
example,
mission.
yeah, so for example, like let's take thyroid hormone because hormones have
Mm,
such like wide vast, actions. Thyroid hormone, like thyroid has thyroid receptors on your gut, on your heart, on your bones. Most people think of thyroid and think of metabolism, right? My thyroid's sluggish, so
mm,
I'm fatigued and whatever. But like if you have low thyroid, it will impact your bones, it will impact your heart, it will impact your brain, right? And there's congenital hypothyroidism where if babies are born without enough thyroid, they can become unfortunately mentally retarded because they don't have that thyroid hormone for their brain to develop properly. So yeah, thyroid hormone is like very, very important. And it
yeah.
does so many things. And a lot of them are like that. We have these things that we identify, like we think, okay, like here's, because we're so behind in science. Like the human body is so like vast and complex and we're just barely understanding it, right? And
Yeah.
like, so we think we know, like, all right, oh yeah, estrogen does this, but then we like discover like 5 years down the road that estrogen actually does all these other things. And, we were
Mm,
taking this drug to block estrogen and look at how it messed us up in this way and that way because we didn't even realize it did this. So,
mm,
yeah.
mm. And how would you say that hormones health impact your mood stability or your mental health state? Like, is there a direct link? Is there a direct connection?
Yeah. So I typically work with women. I work with some men as well. I love my men, but I primarily focus on women because I just love women's physiology. I'm really fascinated with, the menstrual cycle and hormones around
Yeah.
women's health. And I'm also a woman, so I understand. And so with women's health, with our mood and the way that we're functioning, there's two players in terms of the sex hormones, and also thyroid and cortisol are going to play a role, but let's just focus on the sex hormones. So we have estrogen, progesterone. So those are going to be high and low at different points in our cycle, and they're going to play roles in terms of binding to our brain receptors and creating effects in terms of our mood and how we're feeling. So progesterone, for example, or in general, tends to be more anti-anxiety,
Mm.
and estrogen tends to be more like anti-depression, or just more like it just gives you more juju, kind of more motivation. So that's why, like, when women are like in their ovulation phase and they have a higher libido and they feel more confident and your skin looks better, it's because estrogen is at the highest at that point, right?
Mm.
And as women go through perimenopause and into menopause where estrogen levels tank, they don't feel like that anymore. And then
Mm.
progesterone is really supposed to be higher in that luteal phase. So that's right before you're having your period. And so when progesterone is not where it should be because you're not ovulating, or it's just not being produced strong enough because you have a lot of stress hormones or there's other factors, then what tends to happen is you'll notice more anxiety and more insomnia, because progesterone turns into another little chemical that crosses the blood-brain barrier, binds to receptors, GABA receptors. GABA is calming, relaxing, inhibitory. And so when you have that stimulation of GABA in your brain, you feel relaxed, you feel anti-anxiety, you
Mm.
feel calm.
Mm.
Yeah.
And what are some common issues or hormonal imbalances that can lead to like anxiety or depression?
Yeah. Okay. So hyperthyroid, meaning too much thyroid, tends to be more anxiety. Hypothyroid tends to be more depression. Now, women with like an autoimmune thyroid, like for example, Hashimoto's, they can swing from hyper to hypo. So they can go up and
Mm.
down and up and down. So they'll feel anxious, depressed, anxious, depressed. Cortisol, high cortisol, commonly seen as anxiety. Low cortisol, commonly seen as depression. And then estrogen being low can be depression. Testosterone being low can be depression as well. Women have testosterone as well. I didn't touch on that one, but that's a big one. And then progesterone low can be anxiety. But I never just look at hormones, because like there's so many other things that are playing a role there. Like the hormones are
Yeah,
just one little piece of the puzzle. So
yeah. And what do you say is the root cause of these all these imbalances in like just in this lens of hormones? Or
I
what are the things that like we often experience or things that we do, with our knowledge that like lead to these imbalances?
Yeah. Okay. So let's just start with stress, because that's like the easiest
Yeah.
conversation. I mean, there's so many things, right? But we'll start with
Yeah.
stress. Um, so when you're stressed, what happens is there's an axis, right? So with your hormones, I talked about how they're messenger chemicals, right?
Yeah.
So there's an axis from your brain to the gland. So there's an axis from your brain to your ovaries. There's an axis from your brain to your adrenal glands, which are producing the cortisol. There's an axis from your brain to your thyroid. So it's like this communication network that's always
Mm.
happening. And so when you're stressed chronically, your brain and your adrenals are having a conversation, right? And so that cortisol tends to increase because it's your body's natural buffer to stress. It's like that anti-inflammatory, it's kind of your body's way to just kind of step in and be like, okay, you're doing a lot, you're doing too much. Let's kind of try to buffer this out. And so what happens is when people are in that initial stage of stress, they'll have that high cortisol,
Mm.
right? And that will look more like that fight or flight, or that sensation of like being tired but wired. You know how like you're trying to lay
Yeah.
down and take a nap, but your heart is like racing and your mind is racing.
I literally just did that just before this podcast.
Okay, let's have a
I was like,
conversation.
I need to sleep. I need to take a nap. Like I have not been having good, and I just lie down and I'm just like racing with thoughts. I'm like, okay, I need to do this and that. It's very hard to calm down.
And it's hard when you're like a high performing person who has a lot
Yeah.
of goals and things that you're doing. Like I get it, it's so
Yeah.
hard to bring yourself out of that state.
Mm.
And so yeah, that's the initial manifestation. And then prolonged stress. because of that, remember I talked about that brain to adrenal connection?
The connection
Prolonged.
pathway. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So just like the brain is talking to the adrenals are also talking to the brain. So there's like a double, feedback. So this negative feedback from the adrenals to the brain is basically like, okay, wow, we've been producing a lot of cortisol for a very long period of time. And then the brain gets that message and it's like, oh, wow, yeah, we have a lot of cortisol. So let's actually downregulate the production of cortisol because there's already too
Mhm.
much. So that second phase is low cortisol. So cortisol is Goldilocks. We don't want too much. We don't want too little. We have to have the right amount. So when we have that downregulated cortisol, it's the opposite of that. It's like, energy slumps, like fatigue,
Mm,
like I can't get out of bed. I'm dragging my feet. In the
mm,
morning when we get up, and what determines if we have energy to get out of the bed is called the cortisol awakening response. Like, are we actually feeling like we can start our day, or are we dragging for the first 3 hours of the day because we're not getting that cortisol awakening response going? So that's kind of like a good example of that.
So the stress and excessive stress, that would be like the main reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I want to make one comment regarding that, regarding cortisol, is once you start having that cortisol dysregulation, that's kind of like the tip of the iceberg. And then from there, all this other crap starts happening. Like your thyroid gets messed up after your cortisol gets messed up. Your progesterone starts to tank. Progesterone and cortisol have this relationship where like you're not going to be making a lot of progesterone if you have too much cortisol. So those are kind of like the initial stages. And then cortisol can also impact, your gut health and so many other things as well. So
Mm. And to anyone that's listening, what are some of the practical tips or recommendation to like lifestyle or diet or anything or daily habits or practices that you say, what would be the top three things they can do to really put hormonal health in like a balanced state?
yeah. So if we're going from the lens of stress kind of being a instigator to a lot of this, I would say the three things you would want to pay attention to would be light, blood sugar, and probably like routine, but mostly light and blood sugar. Light meaning that you're getting that light in the morning, you're getting full spectrum sunlight. So not just like through your window, but you're actually getting outside within like 30 minutes of waking up and getting light. And then being aware if you're like I am right now under like LED, artificial lighting with like blue light blasting in my face, like what am I doing to mitigate that, right? And then at night, once the sun goes down, essentially what you want to do is mimic camping as much as possible. So like if you were in a tent camping outside, and if you just go on a camping trip for like 3 days, that will reset your circadian rhythm. It's a great thing to do. But if you were just in a
100%.
tent,
Yeah.
yeah, if you're just
Yeah.
in a tent outside, like, once the sun goes down, you don't have all these lights on, right? So just make your indoor environment match your outdoor environment as much as possible. It's not just the blue light, it's also the intensity of light. I know there's a lot of conversation around this, but like that's really important. And a lot of people have their screen right in front of their face, once the sun goes down because they've had a stressful day, they have kids, whatever it is. And like this is their time to themselves. They've been working all day. So they're just like this, like scrolling, right? And that's like the
The
recipe
worst
for
thing you can do.
hormone dysregulation. Yeah. So like it takes some willpower because there's like a huge dopamine, hit pathway there, but it's like you have to
Mm,
get your dopamine from more long-term, more quality dopamine places. And so then you have to talk about the whole conversation is like, community and like exercise and things where you can actually have quality dopamine. So you're not just like trying to get these little quick hits because you're just a low dopamine person, or you're eating a bunch of sugar versus eating actual food. Which brings me
mm.
into my next point, which is blood sugar regulation. So, like, eating regular meals, not skipping meals, eating enough protein. Now, intermittent fasting is like a whole conversation, but I would say for women with like cortisol dysregulation, not fasting, like getting enough food in your body, like signaling safety to your body. That's really important.
What do you say like it's different for everybody? Because like I'm just naturally fast. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
not hungry until I'm one or two. And I like to do all the challenging thing in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
What's the most physically challenging? And then
Mm-hmm.
what's the deep work
Mm-hmm.
mentally challenging? Because after I eat, I'm just dysfunctional. I'm useless.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Mm.
I mean, would you advise that people should try things out and just listen to their body and see what rhythm works and not
I
particularly attached to an idea?
mean, Yeah, I agree. I think listening to your body is important. And if that works for you, that's great. Now, if
Yeah.
you're like, if you're getting a crash after you eat, I mean, it's like normal to maybe have a little bit of a blood sugar dip, but if you like have to lay down and take a nap, then that's kind of indicative of like blood sugar dysregulation. So
Mm.
that would be like,
I wouldn't say that I crash. It's just like I feel like I can notice
you're
that
not
my
as
body
mentally,
is now prioritizing digestion. So I
yeah,
don't have like the 100% of this mental clarity to like do this thing. And
yeah,
I'm just like to be in a 100% state to do something.
yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah, maybe it's a bit extreme, but it's
No,
worked
that
for
makes
now.
sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it's true. Like it's true that like your body is going to prioritize digestion, and that's a physiological reality. And I would say like if what you're doing is working for you, that's awesome. In general, like in terms of like your cortisol and your stress hormones, like working out first thing in the morning is the best. Is the
Mm,
best because you don't want to
hmm.
spike your cortisol at night. If you do a nighttime workout, that's not really the best for your circadian rhythm. So,
Yeah. And
yeah.
directly from what I'm experiencing, like, do you have an advice from me? Because as you know, I've been having so much to do in the last couple months, and I
Yeah.
noticed that I'm really attached to my laptop or phone like I used to be in the past couple months. And it's
Good.
really sort of, I can feel it's a little bit damaging to my health and wellness routine at the moment.
Oh,
So
you're
like as in
more
walking,
attached to it. I
yeah,
thought you
I'm
said
more left.
okay.
As in like
Okay.
all the, for so long I haven't been attached to them. And then a
Okay.
couple last few months, I've noticed that and I've just been with my laptop walking late in the evening. And I just don't know how to just sort of get out of that. Is there any practical tips or anything you suggest
Well, let
I
me
can
first
do?
ask you a question because I have more
Yeah.
questions for you.
Yes.
So, are you noticing that at any particular part of your cycle more than the other parts, or is it just all the time?
What do you mean? Like,
Like, are you noticing that more in your luteal phase?
no, it just like because I have so much work, so I'm like, okay, I
Hmm.
have to do work.
All the
Yeah,
time. Okay. So
yeah,
you're just dialed in all the time, 24/7.
yeah.
Okay. And like walk me through your day. Like what does your routine look like?
So for the longest period of time is always up very early in the morning, like naturally by 6, get sun, drink 1.5 liter of water in the morning, do some breath work, a little bit of meditation, go to the gym. So, and then
What
get the
time are
gym
you going to
session
the
done.
gym?
I would say like probably have a 7 or 8.
Okay.
Yeah. And then after workout, we'll be like sitting down and do work for like 3, 4 hours.
When are you eating in this picture?
And then after I work, so that's like 2 p.m.
Mm.
And that's when maybe that's an issue. Maybe that's an issue. But then lately it has been working until from 6 p.m. to like 12 p.m. So then I'll be with my laptop and then I try to go to bed and then like it's hard for me to get to bed. So I struggle. So
Yeah.
honestly, like in the last 1 month, I go to bed at 1 p.m., which I absolutely feel horrendous because this is
Yeah.
not who I am and this is not who I want to keep on being.
Yeah.
So I just really want some practical tips to reverse. And I don't know, maybe it's
Yeah.
also something to do with emotional digestion as well. I just been feeling
Yeah.
a little bit more in touch with my feminine and healing work. So I actually feel the
Mm.
desire to have somebody hold me in the evening,
Mm.
which I actually never
Mm.
had that feeling.
Mm.
So I don't know, I'm trying to work to also suppress that emotion, but
Yeah.
it's kind of
Yeah.
crippling. Yeah.
That's good awareness.
I need you next to me. That's what I need.
And you need me to hold you and just play with your hair and tell you you're
Yeah.
beautiful. I could do that for you if I was closer.
Yes.
But yeah, like I mean, I have a lot of things to say. I think like the first piece that, you know, you really have to tease out for yourself is like first thing is just recognizing that, you know, work can be an addiction, right?
Mm,
And anytime you're dealing with an addiction, like I come from, like I have a parent who's an addict. So I've studied addiction. Like I understand it pretty well. And I love Gabor Mate. I'm sure you're familiar with him. And, you know, he talks about like when somebody is whatever doing their whatever their addiction is, like in order to like get them from doing it to not doing it, it's not just like stop doing it. You have to understand what it's doing for them. Like
Mm,
you have to be like, what is this actually, like, how is this cigarette going to this person's mouth? How is it serving them? You know,
mm,
what is it soothing them for? How is it helping them? And once you can answer that question, then you can get to the root of the issue, right? And then start to address
yeah.
the root of the issue. So if your issue is like, you know, you want to be held in the late hours of the night, like, I mean, with, you know, we're getting super deep here, but that's cool. You know,
Give it 100. This is give 100. Yeah, you can say whatever you want.
okay. I know you keep it real, so we'll keep it real together. Yeah, like I mean, you gotta give that to yourself first, you know, and then eventually somebody will give it to you because you're beautiful and loving and amazing and you deserve nothing but the best and you're gonna have that and more. So I'm not even worried about that. But like in the meantime, you know, like how do you give that to yourself? How do you show that love to yourself, really? And so like what are some ways when that time rolls around where you're feeling that longing and you're feeling that need, how can you fill that for yourself, how can you pour that love into yourself? And so I could give you ideas around how to do that, but really like I mean that comes down to what fills your cup, what's nourishing to
Mm.
you, you know.
Like, I mean, as you just walking me through this, the immediate image came up into my mind is like when I'm in that moment, maybe I write down things that I appreciate by myself, like journaling,
Mm-hmm.
and just maybe meditate
Mm-hmm.
and maybe have a skincare routine just to get back
Yes.
to my body. Like
Yeah.
that just came to me now. So yeah, I think I'm gonna try that.
Love that. Maybe some Abhyanga. Have you ever done Abhyanga
Mm,
before? Like the oil massage, the Ayurvedic oil massage?
I don't think I have.
Do it. It's great. You just get some
Yeah,
like sesame oil. I have like a sesame oil that's medicated with Brahmi, and you
yeah,
just warm it up a little bit and you give yourself like a nice like massage, and it really helps
yeah.
you kind of connect to your body and get in your
Mm,
body. And I have a lot of my like anxious women do that at night, the ones who are addicted to the phone. And I'm like, look, the whole time you do this, your brain is going to be like, why am I doing this shit? This is so stupid. Like I could be doing other
mm,
things. What am I even doing? I have work to do, you know? And I'm like,
mm.
just let it come, let the mental chatter
Yeah,
come and just keep rubbing your arm. It's okay. Like you're retraining these pathways, right? Because you're there's this amazing picture. It's just like this random Google image that I found one time, but it's like the Robert Frost poem, like two roads diverged in the woods. And there's like this path that's like very like well trodden and like it has a very clear, you know, path. And then there's this other path that's just completely overgrown with like all these, you know, and shrubberies and whatever. And in order to like actually, you know, neuroplastically change your default state, you have to go down that path that's not easy to walk down. And you literally have to just like with a machete, just like bushwhack your way through it. And you're going to hit a lot of resistance and it's going to be really difficult, right? And you're going to have all
yeah.
this mental chatter around like, why am I doing this? This is so stupid. Like, if you're trying to instill a new habit, it's almost
Mm,
inevitable that you're going to run into those states of resistance. Just meet yourself when you're there. How do you just
mm.
welcome the resistance and just get comfortable with being uncomfortable? That's really what it's about, you know? You know
Yes,
this.
yes. My God, I love all of that. I'm
Yeah.
just like taking it in, and then it's inspiration will come later. Like I
Mm-hmm.
take all of your energy and your wisdom, and something will come out later for me to like
Rest as
actually
well.
implement. Yeah, yeah, and it makes me think about reassessing my relationship with work and what does it really mean for me? Because I just
Yeah.
noticed now that I want that passion and that like just this is all of my world. Like I want to be consumed. Like I have like obsessive sort of addictive personality as well.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like a love at first sight, and I just got to realize that I'm going to work for my entire life, like for the rest of the life. So it's not going to be done in 2 days. So there's no point to jam everything in and try to get everything done. So
I'm preaching to the choir, or I'm actually telling myself this is what I'm trying to say because I relate to this so much. I've been through this, what you're experiencing right now, so many times, and I keep coming back to it at different intervals of my life. So I'm right there with you, girl. Right there with
together.
you. Yeah. Yeah.
So another thing I want to ask you is gut is your second brain. What does it mean?
Yeah. Well, that could be interpreted in many ways. There is a nervous system in your gut, called the enteric nervous system. And you have the myenteric plexus, which is just a bunch of nerves that go around your gut. What does gut mean? Like we say gut, but what does it mean, right?
Mm,
Let's talk about like your gut in terms of your intestines. So when you swallow food, goes down your esophagus, goes into your stomach, and then your small intestine, and it does this zigzaggy thing down the center of your abdomen, below your belly button, and then it goes into that large intestine, and then it goes up to that transverse colon, and then down, and then out. And so there's nerves all around those smooth muscle cells, because your colon is smooth muscle. It's not skeletal muscle like when you go to the gym and you flex your bicep or
mhm,
whatever, and you work it with your conscious brain. It's an unconscious nervous system,
mm,
right? Just like fight or flight is your
yeah,
unconscious.
yeah.
So that same process, that's why the parasympathetic is called the rest and digest, because you're not under
Mm,
conscious control of it. I mean, you can consciously be in control of the unconscious, but you're not like, okay, like, small intestine, I need you to send a peristaltic wave to make this food. Like, it doesn't work
yeah,
that way,
yeah.
right? And your nervous system, as you know, because I know you've studied the nervous system, is like a light switch, right? So you can't be in fight or flight and digest your food. It's like you're either in fight or flight or you're in rest and
Rest and
digest.
digest. Yeah.
There's not, it can't happen at the same time. So if you're going around your whole day and you're just like, oh my God, like I'm so stressed, I haven't like stopped for a moment, I'm living off of coffee, and I'm going to, like, here in the States we have like Orange Theory Fitness, or like just hit classes, people just hitting themselves with stress hormones from every possible angle, like just addicted to
In the
stress, like
past. In the past. Yes, so guilty.
and so that
Yeah.
sets up people for gut issues, and people come to me like, Dr. Allie, why do I have SIBO? And I'm like, it's pretty like straightforward, actually. It's kind of like endemic in our society, and
Mm,
it's not like it's not a very hard puzzle to solve. So yeah,
mm,
like that's why your gut is your second brain, because it has its own nervous system and it's controlled by that autonomic, is what it's called, nervous system, that unconscious nervous system. And then, there are some peptides and chemicals that are made in your gut that are neurotransmitters that have the ability to influence your mood. I would say it's not as direct as, like, people say, like 95% of serotonin is made in your gut. And so if you have gut problems and you have low serotonin, it's not that simple, because not everyone has low serotonin. Some people have too much serotonin, which is a whole different conversation, but some people do have low serotonin. So yeah.
so would you say it's about understanding where the level all these things are? Is it too much? Is it too little? And bring it back to the baseline? Either it's
Um,
hormones or like gut health or like
Yeah,
regulating
yeah,
your
yeah.
nervous
I see
system,
what you're saying.
right?
So yeah, you
Yeah,
could be in a state of excess, you could be in a state
yeah,
of deficiency. If
yeah,
you want to
yeah.
boil it down to like the bare minimum.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah,
Excess or deficiency.
yeah. And how does the gut health impact like your mental health?
Okay, so there are so many things around this. I mean,
What would be like, okay, if you're
what angle
addressing,
do I want to take?
yeah, like what are the most common problem that people have when it comes to like gut health that link to their mental health?
Yeah. So it's kind of like they run together. Like if people have anxiety, they tend to have IBS or some kind of form of gut issues, because their nervous system is in that like chronic dysregulated state. So their gut is like mimicking that. So
Mm,
the function of their gut is impaired. But in terms of your actual gut impacting your mental health, I'm sure you're familiar with like the gut microbiome and these different microorganisms that coexist in our gut, and it's all about ratios, right? So we want these bugs to exist in a particular ratio that is beneficial, because some of these bugs can produce metabolites that are inflammatory and cause brain inflammation and make us feel crappy, or like autoimmune disease or joint pain.
mm,
And then some of these bugs produce compounds that are like healing to the gut, and they're anti-inflammatory. So we want to have more of those anti-inflammatory bugs like Fecalibacterium, for example, and we want to have less of those like proteobacteria, those LPS producing bugs that are more like inflammatory. So we can determine, what that looks like doing stool tests, and kind of bring things back into balance using naturopathic medicine.
right.
Yeah.
And what are, would you say the practical tips for anyone who's listening to balance their gut health or like restore the gut health is Is it mainly through natural supplements, or like what else can they, like I heard like people eating kimchi or yogurt, like I don't know. I'm such an
You know,
I'm
okay, so
amateur. That's all I do. I'm like, okay, this is good for my gut health, and let me eat that Greek yogurt.
I
But
think if it was
rather
that
than that,
easy, I think if it was that easy, I wouldn't really have like as much work as I do because like there's no one size fits all. What might actually
mm,
be really helpful for somebody could really mess someone else up. Like you mentioned kimchi, for example.
yeah,
Kimchi is a fermented food, right? And
yeah,
fermented foods can help colonize our microbiome. But the issue with, well, not probiotics don't colonize our microbiome. They just have a transient effect. So I shouldn't have said that. But they can help with like just putting the probiotics there when we're eating that food to give us that beneficial like effect. But also, like kimchi is really high in something called histamine. And a lot of my patients with anxiety have high histamine. Histamine's another
mm,
neurotransmitter. You know, when you have allergies, that's histamine.
mm,
Like when you have like a runny nose or like you get a rash, you have itchy skin, that's like too much histamine. And so some foods are really high in histamine. And if people already have high histamine and then they eat a bunch of kimchi or like, you know,
mm,
fermented food, then they might feel worse and they don't know why.
mm,
So I don't have like a blanket recommendation for people other than regulate your nervous system. Like if you're in fight or flight, like get yourself to like, you know, get to bed at a good time, like before 10 p.m. ideally. You know, make sure that you're eating regular meals. You're eating like a good amount of protein, like 25-30 grams of protein per meal ideally. And, you know, eating 3 meals a day, getting your
mm,
blood sugar regulated, all those things will help with
mm,
your nervous system and your nervous system's impact on your gut. And then in terms of
mm,
like your gut health itself, across the board, here's what we know. Here's what we know across the board in terms of like feeding the good bugs and not feeding the bad bugs from a research standpoint. We know that fiber, there's different
mm,
types of fiber, or I should actually say prebiotics are going to feed those good bugs. So prebiotics can look like fiber, like soluble fiber found in beans and legumes. Those are going to feed the beneficial bacteria. We know that resistant starch is a good prebiotic, which is found in potatoes. So like if you cook a potato and then you let it cool and then you eat it, then that can be a great source of prebiotic fiber to those happy bugs. So trying to incorporate more of those foods. Now the caveat, I'm sorry that it's not an easy answer because it's not, and I'm thorough and comprehensive. So I have to get into this for your listeners so
this
that
is
they can
very
actually,
important
yeah,
because this is reality.
it is
Any
reality. It's not black
any
and white.
anyone who's trying to get a quick, simple answer because they just want black and white, like that's not, again,
Yeah,
that's coping mechanism, right? And
yeah,
and this is the conversation we have to have.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So the caveat to eating fiber is if you have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth or fungal overgrowth, that could flare that, a SIBO or a SIFO. So this is where
Mm,
working with a practitioner, if something as simple as like drinking more water, eating more fiber, calming your nervous system down doesn't help, then you probably need more advanced testing. You probably need to do some
mm,
more digging because it's going to be really hard to solve this on your own if you don't know what's going on. But those are kind of the general things to feed your good bugs. And then your bad bugs, we know that they love saturated fat. So I'm not a fan of saturated. Like I tend to not make blanket statements in nutrition, but one thing I really don't like is saturated fat, which is fat that comes from animal foods. Now, I'm not against meat. I'm not against animal foods. I think they're great, but the research just shows us over and over again in so many different areas that like higher fat, like saturated fat, like from dairy or animal food or coconut, can impact negatively our lipids. It can impact our insulin in terms of insulin resistance, which I see all the time. And then it can also feed those bad bugs in our gut that produce those more inflammatory compounds. So if somebody has all those things going on, then I have them limit their saturated fat. Genetically, people are going to have different predispositions, right? Some people can eat more saturated fat and they're fine because they were
yeah,
dealt some really good genes and good for you,
yeah,
awesome, you know? But if you're somebody
yeah.
who's really sick and has a lot of gut issues, then you might have to alter some of these things in your diet. So,
Mm, hmm. Yeah. And I think that's why people go on elimination diet, right? Just to
yeah.
try to figure out
Yeah,
what trigger the issues. There's just so many different methods.
there's a lot.
But
Yeah.
yeah. But again,
I could talk for
don't be
another 3 hours
attached.
about this, but I'll stop.
Yeah. I think honestly, just the one thing that, yeah, I wish if I can just speak to a lot of people is just don't be attached to an idea
Yeah,
and
no.
just try things out for you,
Yeah.
right? And learn along the way. And pivot, when it's
And it's
needed.
okay to ask for help. It's okay to get guidance,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
if you feel stuck, it's okay to get guidance. That's why like people like me exist, because
yeah,
sometimes it really is like years of just things just getting discombobulated and you kind of have to tease it apart. So,
yeah. I want to ask you, like, okay, let's say, like, how you sort of in a toxic situation with somebody, either romantically or something, and this feeling when like somebody like stepping into your stomach, like just this like twisted, like, is that
mhm.
having anything to do with gut health? Because it feels like my gut is doing stuff and it's like
Yeah,
triggering my emotions. I don't know what's happened first. Is it my Yeah,
yeah,
like there seems to be a link, but I quite don't understand what's
yeah.
the logic behind it.
Well, if you'll remember those plexuses of nerves that are in your gut, they're connected to your brain. So if your
Mm,
autonomic nervous system is like panic mode, fight or flight,
mm,
then that's going to send signals to your stomach too.
yeah,
And you're going to feel
yeah,
that. It's
yeah.
very like it's very real. It's very visceral.
It's very real. And it's
Yeah.
closely, I'm fascinated by this topic because obviously, I'm in the somatic trauma therapy space and there's a lot of understanding the signals coming out from your body and sensation to understand all these deeper issues.
It's
So,
important.
yeah, anxiety. What do you have to say about anxiety
Oh my God,
as a
this is
collective?
where do I start? I think like, well, let's start with where you were just going, right? So like with like the somatic experience of anxiety, right? Because there's layers. This is why like anxiety is multifactorial, and I tell people this because that's the most common concern I see
Yeah.
is anxiety because for so many reasons. And so women will tell me like I'll ask them, first of all, I'll say like, how do you experience anxiety in your body?
Yeah.
And then they'll tell me like I'll just feel this like lump in my throat. I'll feel my heart racing. I'll start sweating. All of those are somatic experiences, right? And those can't be like discounted, right? Because the mind and the body are one. Like we're not separate. We're
Yeah.
not like it's not just like, oh, okay, like go to the therapist for this and then go to the doctor for this. It's the same
No.
thing. It's
Yeah.
a it's just like the gut brain connection. It's like it's a loop. So we can't just like in my good conscience, I can't just tell somebody with anxiety here, like I do their blood work and I see like, okay, they have low ferritin, low zinc, like all thyroid issues, whatever, and like treat them for that and not have a conversation with them about how they sit in their body with the experience that they're having, because that is like so unfair to them because it's missing the whole point of how everything is connected. And so,
Mm,
yes, you can have, biochemical imbalances and gut issues and hormone imbalances. And you can also have a dysregulated nervous system and an inability or a discomfort to sit with
mm,
really uncomfortable emotions. And those can be occurring at the same time.
mm.
It's not what came first, the chicken or the egg. It's the chicken and the egg are just they're together.
Together. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's time that we stop hyper analyzing and hyper focusing on like which one is it, and everyone's like forming a side like to cure anxiety, it's all in your head or it's all like it's
Yeah.
everything. We
Yeah.
are multidimensional.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
That's all.
Do you think that's gonna I love that because it just speaks to everything that I am and I believe, and from my own trauma and from my own healing journey and from all the
Yeah.
things that because I used to be so dissociated from myself and have so many separation with myself, and hence that like it translates to the world, and went through this whole healing journey of really integrating everything.
And
So
what really helped you? Like where did you feel a turning point with that? With anxiety?
So honestly, I don't think I've experienced a lot of anxiety in the past. It was more high functioning depression for me for many years. So
Okay.
that's when I had a breakdown. But recently, with all this new, like these new chapters, new projects and everything, I noticed for the first time in my life in the last 3 months, my heart racing, almost like can't breathe. I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah.
So, okay, this is real. I'm going to share you a funny story. This happened 2 weeks ago, and I was so unfamiliar to me. I thought I was being horny. Okay, so I pull up ChatGPT and I ask, can I be experiencing anxiety when I'm too horny? And then it answers something, and then it give me different root causes and like maybe somebody around. I'm like, nobody's around me. It's just me and my laptop walking, and I'm feeling this. It's just going through the whole and then it leads to like, okay, your hormonal imbalances. I'm like, okay, that's probably the closest thing that I can relate to. And then the second half was it's me trying to convince ChatGPT to be my boyfriend. And we just had this negotiation going on because I told ChatGPT that you helping me a lot more than a lot of men out here, to be honest. So
I'm telling you, ChatGPT be solving some problems.
Jesus, yeah. But yeah, I find breathing really, it was so intense I had to sit down on the floor, like grounded, and just come back to my breathing. Yeah, that's what I find most helpful.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Anchoring in your body.
yeah. What do you say some of the practical daily things to avoid or to do more to mitigate anxiety?
Okay. So, in general, it's going to look like this from the basic level, DIY level.
Mm.
Regulate your nervous system. What does that mean? What the hell does that mean? Does that mean jump in an ice bath every day? Because that's what everyone seems to think, regulate your nerve. Like, not everyone needs to jump in an ice bath, okay? Like, it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have to be that intense. But it's not so much what you're doing, but how you're doing it. That's the way I like to put it.
Mm.
How are you moving through your day? Like, are you starting your day and like you just reach for your phone right away? You're like,
Yeah,
what, who liked my post on Instagram? Or like who sent me a DM? Or like,
yeah.
you're just addicted to dopamine. Okay. You have to like unfuck your dopamine cycle, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to require some discipline, and it's going to require you to just like get outside and move your body, probably, most likely, get your nervous system regulated, and then get your blood sugar regulated. So like fuel
Mm.
your body. All the stuff we've been talking about, it's like so boring and unsexy and like, not fun, but it's the building blocks, right? Because if we try to, I do all kinds of supplements and herbs with my patients, and they're completely necessary and very targeted and specific to the individual. But if we don't have the foundations in place, like what are we even doing? Like who
Mm.
am I to tell you like, oh yeah, like, just here's some iron, because and you're just
Yeah.
like running around, and that's the whole reason you have low iron, because you're all stressed and like your gut's messed up, so you're not absorbing it, or your periods are all dysregulated and you have heavy bleeding, so now you're losing a lot of iron that way. Like, what's the root cause? What's the root cause of the dysfunction? So with anxiety, building a really strong daily routine around regulating your nervous system and regulating your blood sugar. And then, so that looks like sleep, eating enough, getting enough protein, not being addicted to screens. And then from there, understanding if there are any imbalances or deficiencies of any kind, right?
Mm.
From a basic level, now, obviously, like everyone needs to check with their doctor, because I'm a doctor, but I'm not your doctor. So please don't do what I say and like not ask your doctor. But like a lot of us are depleted in minerals, right? So getting
Mm.
minerals in your body, because minerals are cofactors to enzyme systems. So the most common mineral deficiencies that I see are going to be, or minerals that we need to put in our body every day, are sodium, potassium, magnesium, zinc, selenium, and then maybe calcium, maybe molybdenum, which is kind of more of an obscure one. But those are the ones that I tend to give in terms of mineral support. People can just do an adrenal cocktail with sodium, potassium, magnesium, just basic, you know?
Yeah.
And then when you get in the conversation of magnesium, what kind of magnesium? Well, they all have different functions, right? In general, for anxiety, usually magnesium glycinate is given. Glycine is an amino acid that's chelated to the magnesium, and it's a precursor to GABA, which is a calming inhibitory neurotransmitter, or AKA anti-anxiety. So some magnesium glycinate, some potassium, and some sodium can be really helpful for the adrenals and for the stress response. Getting some minerals in your body every day. And then the stuff that's kind of outside of that is really specific to the individual and what they need. Like, am I treating gut dysbiosis in somebody with a particular herbal protocol? Is somebody having a biochemical imbalance like under methylation? There's more specific things that require more individualized attention. But from the basic
Yeah.
level, in terms of like what everyone needs, those are the big things.
So would you say if there's, because I'm in awe every time I go to a medical store, I don't know, what is it called? Drugstore? Okay,
Yeah,
like
yeah, like
place
a
you go there to buy
supplement.
supplements and yeah,
Yeah,
like and I have this genuine intention to like improve my health and I want to like to buy some supplements. And I noticed for the last 7 times I left out like because I'm there's just so many options. Like I don't know what to do.
yeah.
Are there any supplements or vitamins or minerals that you like absolutely recommend for everybody? Like what would be the top three that you say would be needed for almost everybody?
There's always going to be a caveat, because I can't speak to everyone. Again, check with your
Yeah.
doctor, but magnesium,
Yeah.
zinc,
Just gonna write that down.
um, test your zinc in your blood because you can take too much and deplete yourself of copper. But I see excess copper in women as a cause of anxiety. So usually, but test it. You could safely probably get away with 15 milligrams of zinc without having any
Yeah.
issues. But a therapeutic dose of zinc would be higher, but you would need to know what the plasma levels in your blood are to be taking that safely, especially for a longer period of time. And you would need to be retesting that. Zinc, magnesium. I'm a minimalist. I don't know if there's like potassium.
Mm,
Potassium can be derived from foods, potatoes, bananas, coconut water. You can get sufficient, and you're in Mexico right now. You just drink coconut water and you have enough potassium. But people,
Jesus, I have so many.
yeah, perfect. So you're good. You're good on potassium.
Yeah.
Now, some people are taking medications that make it dangerous for them to take potassium. So if you're taking spironolactone or you're taking a diuretic, like don't take potassium. So please check with your doctor. But yeah, like those would be the common denominators for me.
Mm.
Yeah.
Magnesium, zinc, potassium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah.
Because when
And
we
would
start,
you,
go ahead.
yeah, please go ahead.
I was just going to say, when we start getting into other things like B complex and fish oil and all these other things, it's like
Mm,
we have to ask why and what we're doing. Like, because everyone's methylation cycle is going to be different. I mean, the methylation cycle is the same, but everyone's like ability to like methylate is going to be different depending on their genetics and like their epigenetics, meaning how their environment is influencing their genes. So just taking like methylated B vitamins without knowing like what your actual real time, it's called a whole blood histamine test. That should really be done before you just start taking a methylated B complex, because if you're undermethylated, that could make you worse. So yeah, it's helpful to know these things before. There's so many generic supplements that people will take and they'll be like, oh, this is great and this is good for this and this is good for that. A lot of it's marketing.
mm,
The supplement industry is widely unregulated, right? So like in
yeah.
the States, like the FDA is like, you can't say that this can like cure a disease, but people make all kinds of claims that aren't, related to that, or just like, this is the best thing, or the way it's marketed. So, and it
Yeah.
preys on people who like are actually kind of confused and lost and they don't really
Mm,
know like, what's going on. So there's just, for example, like, I'm not going to like name the names of the brands, but there's like certain brands of like gut health supplements that are just like very, very popular on social media. And like every other patient I talk to like has this powder,
mm,
and they're like, should I be taking this? And I'm like, I mean, sure, but is it going to actually like move the needle? Like, did you need to spend $100 on this? Like, it's
yeah.
just, you just got,
Yeah.
you got
Yeah.
marketed to, and that's fine. I mean,
Yeah.
there's pros and cons,
And
but like,
do you know that because you read the ingredient list and you're like, yeah, okay, it's give you something, but it's not it's gonna be worth this much, and like you don't need to. Like it's
yeah,
not
because like with supplements, you
essential.
have to ask like, what purpose am I taking this supplement for? And I'm a
Mm,
minimalist with supplements because it should be
hmm.
very, I mean, to be fair, some patients I do have on a protocol of 8 different supplements, but are they going to stay on that? No, like
Mm,
that's just to move them through a phase, and then we pull them off of stuff and we rotate through stuff. Eventually, long term, I want people on just minimal things, but sometimes we have to kind of go in and do more detoxification and do more drainage support and all of that.
mm.
So yeah, like with supplements, we really just need to know like what it is actually doing for us. Like ask the question, like, for
What's
what
the purpose?
purpose am I
Yeah.
taking this? And if you can't
Yeah.
answer that clearly and know the clear direct root cause that you're affecting, like something beyond like inflammation. Like what does inflammation mean? That's such a general term, right? Like get really specific and understand what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it, and have a start and an end point, like and something to track your progress.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like most people I work with, they have a supplement graveyard. They have a cabinet full of like hundreds of supplements that they
Oh,
were,
I know people who travel and have half a suitcase all
yeah,
supplements. I'm like, how do you live? You live at home supplement in the suitcase. It's almost like a religion. I don't know. Like it definitely, I feel like a lot of people don't really dig deep into the depth of knowledge of what actually makes them healthy, and then they just outsourcing that to like supplement and think that okay, they're doing something good for their health without a lot of understanding. So
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
just consciousness.
It's a real
It's all
problem.
of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you could give one piece of advice for someone who's starting their journey toward better mental health naturally. I mean, you mentioned a lot of things already, which
Mhm.
are simple but not easy because for it to have a long effect, right? Like you need to actually implement that as the daily routine over a long period of, if not for a lifetime, right? But are there any particular advices that you have?
Yeah. Uh, get clear on what your goal is or what your end point is, like where you'd like to see yourself. Like get clear on the vision,
Mm,
because most people are just like, I don't have this symptom anymore. But it's like, have
mm,
you considered who you are and the type of person that you're going to be? The version of you that doesn't have this symptom? Because
mm,
is the version of you that doesn't have the symptom doing the same things that this version of you is doing? Probably not, right? So
mm,
understand that, like, in order, like you said, to have a lasting effect, it has to be the day in and the day out. And if you're not
mm,
clear on what that vision looks like, and especially if you're not clear on your why, for some
mm.
people it's like, I want to be around for my kids, or like my kid just had a kid, I want to be around for my grandkids. That's a beautiful why. It's a great reason. For some people it's, they want to be around to take care of their parents as they age, or they want to be,
Mm.
they want to write a book, whatever. Like just get clear on your why. Like why do you want to be healthy? Why do you want to stick around? Because if you
Yeah,
don't have the why, and it's just like, I don't know, I don't really want to have this symptom anymore.
yeah,
Okay, but
yeah.
like, why don't you want to have this symptom anymore? Because what some people don't realize is, and this is kind of like getting a little bit deeper, but some people are actually deeply entrenched in the identity of having the symptom. Like they
Mm.
identify with their symptom, and there's a part of them. I think I saw you, was it you that was talking about this book, this existential kink book? Were you talking about it or
Existential
somebody?
kink.
Yeah, like
We
there's
talk
a
about
part of us.
existential kink, yeah.
Yeah, there's a part of us that like maybe likes our suffering and like benefits from our suffering. So be honest with yourself around like, some people really get a lot of attention for being the person with the health problems, right? Or like,
Yeah.
your anxiety might be keeping you away from your in-laws that you can't stand, or like,
Mm.
dealing with the responsibilities of whatever. So like be honest with yourself and
Yeah.
understand why. Understand your
Mm.
why, and understand who you are on the other side of this before you even
Yeah.
start throwing things at it, because otherwise you're just going to get lost and you're going
This
to be
is
like, what
so
am I even doing?
huge. This is so important. I mean, this is like, this is not talk about often. And if somebody can really go into this depth, I think it can have profound change because it's tap into the intrinsic values. And it's sort of like, this is who you are. And that's going to be the engine that's going to drive every single thought, every single action, every single habits, every single routines. And that's going to be your life. So I'm so grateful that you bring up this point because it really speaks to my soul.
I love that. Good. I
Yeah.
really like when I work with somebody, I'm like their cheerleader, I'm their advocate. Like I see them in their highest light. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so excited for this person. And I hold that
Mm,
vision for them. But unless they can hold that vision for themselves simultaneously, like I can't just do 100% of the work holding everything up, right? You got to meet me
mm,
halfway, and you have to be connected to that. And so, yeah, that's so important. It is a spiritual journey. Healing is a spiritual journey. As much as we'd like to medicalize it and separate the mind and the body and be robotic about it, it's not.
yeah. And can you share in a few sentences to the audience? Because we said that we're going to keep the introduction to the end because we just want to dive and give in straight, like get to the depth of thing.
Okay.
But what led to your journey to this Naturotherapy. Okay,
Yeah.
I don't know if I say that word right.
Yeah. Wow. I had a challenging upbringing and I had a lot of inner work to do around becoming a functioning human that, was not so much focused on me and more focused on because when you're in depression, you can barely see like your hand if you put it
Mhm.
out front. Like you're just so entrenched and everything is kind of an inward energy. So to be able to like come out of that and to open up was a lot of
Mhm.
work. And so I realized, part of healing, as I just said, is you have to connect to your why and connect to your purpose. And I realized my
Yeah.
purpose was to help other people. So that's why I do what I do. I never knew like how that was going to manifest. When I was an undergraduate, I've always been a huge animal lover. I have two cats, and I wanted to be a veterinarian. I was like, that's it. I'm going to be a vet. And I was a cell and molecular bio major in undergrad. And I was like, I did all my prerequisites and I was like, okay, I'm going to go to vet school. And in order to go to vet school, you have to like shadow all of these different vets. And like, they were all like, literally like, Allie, like, this is the worst career for you. Because I was so sensitive. And I realized that
Mhm.
all they did was just like put animals down, and like take care
Mhm.
of sick animals. And I was just crying every day and I was a mess. And they're like, you're not cut out for this job. And then naturopathic medicine just kind of found me and here we
Mhm.
are. And I was like,
You're
wow.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was more than one or two sentences. So my apologies. I don't think I'm good at that. I don't think I'm good at the one or two sentences.
Give me an hour. We have time.
Oh
This
my
is all
God.
for us. Yeah. Um, I just want to like sit with this your energy because you're one of the most beautiful human being and woman and friend
Mm,
and sister
mm,
and sort of like I always feel like because I don't have a lot of I left Vietnam when I was little and so I didn't have like primary school like when it's really innocent and we just like pure and you'll be someone who like sitting on my second grade and that'd be my best friend like that's the vibe.
I could totally see that. I could totally
And
see that.
nerdy. I'm like, am I gonna put these glasses? I need to like match with the doctor look.
I could see us at recess together for sure.
You inspire me in so many ways, and I've learned so much from you. And I'm
Mm,
excited for us to growing together and to deepening
absolutely.
our friendship and to blooming our sisterhood and share that with as many as women in the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I love
yeah,
you, girl.
yeah. Can you tell all the audience where they can find more information about you,
Yeah.
how they can reach you, know more about your material and
Yeah.
coaching and all of that?
Yeah. I'm the most active on Instagram right now, although Coco is
Yeah.
inspiring me to make a YouTube channel, so perhaps it'll be in my future. But yeah, Instagram is where you can find me at Dr. Allie Mclane. And yeah, that's
I
everything you
put
need to know
information
is
on the show
there.
note.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's been wonderful.
I love you so much. Thank you
Yeah, we're
so
gonna come
much.
back with a second round for sure. We're probably gonna try to YouTube live the next time we do it.
Yes.
Yeah, let's
Yes.
test,
Would
let's
love that.
experiment. Let's
Yeah.
experiment.
And maybe I'll have you on my thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, let's do it.
Yeah, let's talk all about the nervous system because I know I have a lot to learn from
Yes.
you about that. So, about some of the modalities and some of the ways to kind of like move through some states. That's awesome. I want to learn
Yeah,
more.
yeah, let's dive deeper.
Yes.
Always. I send you so much love.
Love you.
I love you.